working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching ASEAN in Focus. On tonight's headlines. We bring you an urgent update on the scorching heat wave gripping the planet. According to the World Meteorological Organization, we have witnessed the hottest month of June on record, swiftly followed by the hottest week ever recorded at the beginning of July. A huge construction girder collapsed in Bangkok, killing at least one person and injuring 8 others. More than 50 Vietnamese officials went on trial for alleged corruption over repatriation flights during the COVID-19 pandemic. In a country known for its enthusiasm for beauty pageants, basketball, and boxing, the Philippine national women's football team is on a mission to capture the nation's attention as they prepare for their FIFA World Cup debut. And now we bring you an urgent update on the scorching heat wave gripping the planet. According to the World Meteorological Organization, we have witnessed the hottest month of June on record, swiftly followed by the hottest week ever recorded at the beginning of July.
The first week of July, starting from 4th to 7th, could be considered as the warmest period or the warmest week ever recorded. Daily June temperature in the North Atlantic, as you can see, is dramatically high compared to the past behavior of that area. So we record an unprecedented peak of temperature in that part of the world.
And brace yourselves as the warming El Nino weather pattern is just beginning to make its presence felt.
2.6 million square kilometers of loss of sea ice compared to the long-term average, and almost approaching 1.2 million square kilometers below the previous record, which was set in 2022. This is a really dramatic drop in the sea ice extent in the Antarctica.
Michael Sparrow, chief of WMO's World Climate Research Program, expressed his astonishment at the unprecedented reduction in sea ice around Antarctica.
It really is completely unprecedented, this kind of reduction in sea ice that we've seen around the Antarctic. The Antarctic region is normally thought of being relatively stable. It's much colder than the Arctic. We're used to seeing, these big reductions in sea ice in the Arctic, but not in the Antarctic.
The UN agency warned that this marine heat wave would have far-reaching effects on fisheries distribution, ocean ecosystems, and the climate as a whole.
With regards to the effects of the warming ocean, or the unprecedented warming ocean, in the Pacific region, as Omar showed in his slides, we're used to how we study the El Nino and La Nina phenomena. So during an El Nino year, heat moves from the ocean to the atmosphere, and this is well studied. But during an El Nino year, you also have effects on fisheries across, not just in the Pacific, but across the world. What is very unusual this year is the degree of heat we're seeing in the North Atlantic. So you're seeing temperatures, a marine heat wave of more than 5 degrees C around the United Kingdom, for example, and areas around the United Kingdom. This will have a knock-on effect on ecosystems, on fisheries, etc. As well as you have to remember that the oceans have a much higher heat capacity. They hold a lot more heat within them than the atmosphere does. And when the oceans are particularly warm, it means that they warm the atmosphere considerably as well. So we'll see effects on fisheries. We will also see effects on extreme weather events as we go ahead, and extreme warmings of the atmosphere.
When you have a tropical cyclone, everything is affected on the shores, including fisheries, but also including inland, with heavy precipitation that could lead to casualties, displacement of population, and so on. So if we say that is a dramatic change, that means also dramatic likelihood of extreme weather and climate events.
Adding to the concern, the WMO recently announced the onset of El Nino, a weather pattern characterized by Pacific Ocean warming. When combined with the effects of man-made greenhouse gases, it's expected to contribute to one of the next 5 years becoming the warmest on record.
During El Nino year, you get higher temperatures in the atmosphere as well because heat is moving from the oceans to the atmosphere. But as you correctly pointed out, we're actually only just at the beginning of that process. So El Nino hasn't had as much of an effect as it's going to later in the year. So we're seeing these high temperatures in the North Atlantic, etc., despite the fact that El Nino hasn't really got going yet. We can expect much higher temperatures from the El Nino in the latter half of the year in sort of October and November time.
Usually the warmest year is expected to be after this year. So the El Nino year actually is between 2 years, 2023 and 2024, where we expect the El Nino will pick up. And then if there is an expectation of whether we will reach a record year, that is a question likely to happen in 2024 if the strength of El Nino is going in the way that is predicted currently. And also in collaboration with UK Met Office and other organizations, they predicted that there is 66% chance that the 2023-2027 period be near or above 1.5 degrees centigrade. And there is a likelihood of breaking the record in this 5 years period. And also there is more than 90% chance that one of the years within that period will actually be above 1.5. So this is only part of the long-term trend of climate change. In the past few years, actually, we have felt some kind of stagnation in the global temperature. I would say thanks to the opposite La Nina event, which put some break in the temperature globally. Despite La Nina, we have recorded several breaking temperature at limited scale. For example, in Europe, several countries already recorded their temperature records. If La Nina has give us a chance to not see a spike in global temperature, I think El Nino, the current El Nino, gives all the criteria that the global temperature will actually is going to break that record again.
In a race against time, rescue teams have mobilized in Vermont after heavy downpours wreaked havoc across the Northeast, leading to washed-out roads and forced evacuations. Tragically, one woman lost her life in New York, and numerous individuals had to be rescued from submerged vehicles. The picturesque state of Vermont turned into a torrential cascade as relentless rain poured through its verdant landscape and quaint towns. Governor Philip Scott declared a state of emergency, stating that the rainfall, which shows no signs of abating, is likely just the beginning of a worsening situation.
We have not seen rainfall like this since Irene, and in some places it will surpass even that. This may be just the start of what we'll see as rainfall continues and will worsen over the next several hours. As a reminder to all Vermonters, if you're in a life-threatening situation, call 911.
According to the crisis teams from North Carolina, Michigan, and Connecticut joined Vermont Urban Search and Rescue, endeavoring to reach towns that had become isolated due to the deluge of rain that battered the state overnight. On Sunday, shocking video footage captured floodwaters surging through residential streets as a massive storm system moved slowly eastward, dumping copious amounts of rain across the Hudson Valley. In response to the dire situation, Governor Kathy Hochul declared a state of emergency for Orange County, located approximately an hour north of New York City, where life-threatening flooding unfolded within a matter of hours.
But we are still experiencing the effects of a 100-year flooding event, and literally just as I left a street on Chapin We just received word that one of the houses I visited was one that just, the basement just collapsed. So it is still a dangerous situation. There are still people in these homes, and the buildings that they're in are actually compromised because of the volume of flooding that has occurred. So we're expanding the emergency declaration to Rockland, Clinton, and Essex counties, as well as Oswego. Oswego County is sustaining flash flooding events as we speak. They're under a flash flood watch. They had an enormous amount of rain, 3 inches in 90 minutes just a few hours ago, so the water is accumulating in other places as well. I went to another home on Chapin. The parents described what it was like when the first responders arrived at their home, literally picked up their children, carried them out into the water that was almost up to their waists, and the fear that they spoke of, but the relief when they saw these individuals come there and be able to literally give them a lifeline and take them out of harm's way to safety. It's a frightening situation, especially for parents with little kids.
A flood watch remains in effect until 6 a.m. on Monday for New York City, with officials underscoring the dangers faced by residents in low-lying areas with inadequate drainage systems and close proximity to rivers and streams. And now we have an important update from Japan, where officials are warning of the ongoing risk of disasters following record-breaking heavy rain in the northern Kyushu region. Torrential rains that hit southwest Japan this week have killed at least 3 people and left 6 others missing, according to the government today. The rains, which dumped record-breaking amounts of precipitation in some parts of the Kyushu area, caused the rivers to overflow and sudden earth to collapse in landslides. Search and rescue operations are ongoing in the affected areas, but officials say the chances of finding survivors are diminishing. The rains also caused widespread damage, flooding homes and businesses and cutting off access to some communities. The government has warned of more rain in the forecast, which could loosen already sudden ground and increase the risk of landslides. The rains began on Sunday night and continued through Monday. The heaviest rains fell in the Saga region, where a landslide killed 3 people and left 6 others missing. Other areas affected by the rains include Fukuoka, Oita, and Kumamoto prefectures. The rains caused rivers to overflow and dams to overflow, flooding homes and businesses. The rains also cut off access to some communities, including Karatsu, where members of Japan's military are digging through the soil and debris left by a deadly landslide. The government has warned of more rain in the forecast, which could loosen already sudden ground and increase the risk of landslides. Now, this is a developing story, and we'll bring you more updates as information becomes available. A huge construction girder collapsed in Bangkok, killing at least 1 person and injuring 8 others. The girder, which was part of an elevated highway project, fell onto a busy road in the city's east side. The girder was part of the Lat Krabang Tollway project, which is designed to ease traffic congestion in Bangkok. Bangkok Governor Chadchard Sinipan said that the cause of the collapse is still unknown, but that rescuers would wait for engineers to analyze the site before starting operations. He said that 4 of the injured were in serious condition. The collapse comes as Thailand has a poor construction safety record. In 2016, at least 13 people died after a building caved in during construction. The incident has renewed calls for better safety standards and higher wages at Thai construction sites. Staying in Thailand, Pita Limjaroenrat, the frontrunner to become Thailand's next prime minister, vowed to continue his fight for the top job despite facing resistance from the military-appointed Senate. Limjaroenrat's pro-democracy Move Forward Party, or MFP, won the most seats in the May 14 election. But it doesn't have enough votes to form a government on its own. The MFP is currently in talks with other parties to try to secure the 376 votes needed to elect Limjaroenrat as prime minister. However, the Senate, which is dominated by military appointees, is seen as being unlikely to support Limjaroenrat. The Senate has already blocked several of his party's proposals, including a bill to reform Thailand's royal defamation laws. Simultaneously, outside of the parliamentary proceedings, PITA is under investigation regarding allegations that he owned shares in a now defunct media company, which could render him ineligible for office. According to regulations, legislators are prohibited from owning media shares. Despite the challenges, Limja Rowenrath told his supporters that he would not give up.
และผมสัญญากับพวกท่านไม่ได้ว่าการเดินทางของพวกเรามันจะราบรื่นไปซะทุกอย่างมันคงจะมีอุปสรรคขวางน้ำมาเรื่อยๆแต่ตราบใดก็ตามที่พวกเรายังเดินอยู่ด้วยกันรับรองว่ามันจะคุ้มค่าและไม่เหงาอย่างแน่นอน
But now that we have come to a critical juncture of the country, and then we put our personal differences aside, and then we start talking about the people, we start talking about the opportunities and the crises that are lying ahead of us, and then we're starting to have a closer gap, and then hopefully the 4 days remaining, we'll be able to come to the consensus and move this country forward.
The vote to elect Thailand's next prime minister is scheduled for July 13. If Limja Rowenrath is unable to secure the necessary votes, it's possible that a minority government will be formed with Prayut Chan-o-cha remaining as prime minister. However, the election results were seen as a national rejection of Prayut and rule by military-linked parties. It remains to be seen whether Limja Rowenrath will be able to overcome the challenges he faces and become Thailand's next prime minister. However, his vow to continue his fight suggests that he is determined to give it his best shot.
It's very simple. People want change, and change is difficult, especially in this kind of system. Before the election, it's all about competition, that breeds efficiency for the result to the people. After the election, it's about building coalition. That's part of what democracy is all about. That's what the parliamentary system is all about. So if we stick to the system, we stick to this principle, it's not a personal decision that you're voting for me, you're voting for this country. See you next Tuesday.
Over 70 policymakers, practitioners, and representatives of civil society and international organizations gathered in Boracay Island, Philippines for the second ASEAN-EU dialogue on safe and fair labor migration. The event also marked the launch of awareness-raising campaign videos for the ASEAN Safe and Fair Migration Campaign. The audiovisual products, or AVPs, of the public campaign on safe and fair migration in ASEAN were developed to equip prospective and current migrant workers with reliable and comprehensive information to help them prepare better for migration and safeguard against exploitation. The materials are available in 8 languages: English, Khmer, Bahasa Indonesia, Laotian, Burmese, Tagalog, Thai, and Vietnamese. The ASEAN initiative was jointly led by the Department of Migrant Workers and the Department of Labor and Employment of the Philippines and supported by the European Union through the Enhanced Regional EU-ASEAN Dialogue Instrument, or E-READY, and the International Labour Organization through the EU-funded ILO UN Women Safe and Fair program under the EU-UN Spotlight Initiative. In her keynote address, Philippine Migrant Workers Secretary Susan Ople highlighted the critical role of information and education in empowering migrant workers in the region.
Knowledge is power, and it's very important that they are guided every step of their journey through these audiovisual presentations that would pass the test of time. It's very important as well that the voices of our stakeholders are heard.
The ASEAN Labor Ministers meeting, with the support of the ASEAN Senior Labor Officials meeting, and in cooperation with other relevant ASEAN sectoral bodies and organs, as necessary, to mobilize resources for the implementation of the declaration and develop an ASEAN guidelines on the protection of migrant workers in crisis situations. The AVP that we are launching today, as I have mentioned earlier, capsulizes the goal of labor migration as decent work.
According to the World Bank, ASEAN is the origin of 8% of the world's migrants, while hosting around 4% of the world's migrants. Driven by various factors, the discussion around migration focuses primarily on its challenges. However, we must remember that migration brings numerous benefits that have nurtured a country's development throughout history and continue to do so today. To start with, safe and legal migration help address labor market needs and drives economic growth, benefiting everyone. On the other hand, migrant workers support their families and communities at home. In 2022 alone, low and middle income countries received $626 billion in remittances, according to the World Bank. This amount is more than 3 times the total amount of official development aid. In ASEAN, labor migration has been a significant driver of economic growth, of development, and a safety net for families and communities who depend on the remittances of migrants making a living outside their home countries. Southeast Asia is home to countries of both origin and destination. The international remittances received by the region increased from 48 billion in 2010 to $78 billion in 2019. Despite their contributions, whether at the micro or macro levels, many migrant workers still face significant risks throughout the migration process and at work. These risks include discrimination, exploitation, unequal wages, and restrictions on their fundamental rights and freedoms. In the worst cases, they become victims of human trafficking, victims of forced labor. Furthermore, migrant workers were among the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The second ASEAN-EU dialogue on safe and fair labor migration was a significant step forward in the region's efforts to protect the rights of migrant workers. The launch of the AVPs is a valuable resource for migrant workers and will help to ensure that they are aware of their rights and protections. Vietnam is investigating the organizer of a Blackpink concert in Hanoi after social media users complained that the company's website featured a map showing China's territorial claims in the South China Sea. The K-pop megastar girl group is due to host 2 concerts in the Vietnamese capital in late July. However, the news of the performance has been met with controversy after it was revealed IME, the Beijing-based event and entertainment company organizing the concerts, used a map on its website that included the 9-dash line. The 9-dash line is a map that China has used to illustrate its expansive claims over most of the resource-rich South China Sea. However, the line is also disputed by several other countries in the region, including Vietnam. As a result of the controversy, some Facebook and TikTok users have demanded a boycott of the Blackpink concerts. The Ministry of Culture and Information has said that it's starting procedures to look into the incident.
Quan điểm của Việt Nam về yêu sách đường 9 đoạn thì đã được nói rõ nhiều lần. Đến câu hỏi của phóng viên thì theo tôi được biết, các cơ quan chức năng của Việt Nam đang tiến hành. Các câu hỏi của các bạn phóng viên trong cuộc họp báo ngày hôm nay cho thấy sức nóng của show diễn Blackpink tại Việt Nam.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also said that it is aware of the controversy and that relevant authorities are now trying to clarify these claims. IME Vietnam has not yet responded to our request for a comment. The South China Sea is home to valuable and oil gas deposits and shipping lanes. Several countries in the region have expressed concern that China is seeking to expand its reach in the area. The controversy over the Blackpink concerts is the latest example of the tensions that exist in the South China Sea. Meanwhile, more than 50 Vietnamese officials went on trial today for alleged corruption over repatriation flights during the COVID-19 pandemic. The case is part of a major anti-corruption drive that led to the resignation of President Nguyen Xuan Phuc earlier this year. The defendants are accused of receiving bribes from businesses in exchange for adding them to a list of approved repatriation flight providers. They're also accused of charging exorbitant airfares and quarantine fees to Vietnamese citizens who were trying to return home. The total amount of bribery money involved is estimated to be $9.5 million. 18 of the defendants, including former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs To An Dung, could face the death penalty if found guilty. The trial is being closely watched by the Vietnamese public, who are eager to see how the government will handle this high-profile case. In a country known for its enthusiasm for beauty pageants, basketball, and boxing, the Philippine national women's football team is on a mission to capture the nation's attention as they prepare for their FIFA World Cup debut. Despite being considered regional underdogs for a long time, the Filipinas have made significant strides under the guidance of their coach, Alan Stadczyk, the former coach of the Australian national women's team. Stadczyk describes their achievement as nothing short of miraculous.
It's played at a World Cup, and it's rare. It's not common, and it's not common for a lot of the smaller countries in the world. So, it's an opportunity that we can't miss.
In an interview, Hallie Long, a defender for the Filipinas, expressed their determination to do more than just participate in the World Cup. Long emphasized their goal of competing in the highest level and proving that despite being underdogs, they deserve their place in the tournament.
I would like to think we're going to go in there and do more than just participate. We're going in there to compete and give it everything we have, and to show that even though the Philippines, we may be underdogs, we definitely are the underdogs going into this tournament, that us, and along with, I think there's 8 in total new teams, new countries for the first time going into the World Cup, that we all deserve to be there. We all have deserved this chance for years now, and we definitely have to prove ourselves when we go.
She acknowledged the pressure and expectations they face, but remained focused on representing the Philippines with pride.
Yeah, so that feels like a lot of pressure. It's obviously a lot of privilege, but with privilege comes pressure and expectations and all those heavy sort of words. But I just remember why I'm doing it, why I'm here, and who it's all for, and that's for the Philippines. So it becomes a little easier that way. Yeah. Such a global event as the World Cup, men and women's, but it feels really special to do it as a woman and to show that Filipino women we're beautiful, but we're also powerful, and we have what it takes to compete on the global stage.
Another player, goalkeeper Ina Palacios, shared her excitement at the prospect of participating in the World Cup.
I never thought it would happen in my lifetime, just because how slow the progress was here, and to have it right in front of me and to have it in a few months, and that possibility of being there and joining that tournament and competing is something I never imagined, but everything I dreamed of. So it means the world, because now you know that the Filipino people can do it, even if we don't have everything, but we will make the most out of what we have. And
Ina Palacios also discussed the perception of football as a sport accessible only to the wealthy.
It was actually tagged as a rich man's sport, like for people that are rich and can afford field, shoes, and all of that. But in reality, you just need your feet and a ball. And that's why we have a lot of good football players in the provinces, because all they have are fields of grass, and they just buy a ball. Even if it's not a football, they just kick it around. They have more area for a football than a basketball. It's just a lack of opportunity in the sport itself, and that's why it's taken such a long time for it to develop.
Coach Alan Stadczyk shared his belief that their World Cup journey will serve as an inspiration to the young kids across the nation.
But most importantly, hopefully it's an inspiration to so many young kids to want to take up the sport and have a new level of hero to be able to look at. And you said girls, but I'll go further. I'll say any young kid, any young girl, any young boy will now have a hero to watch on TV.
As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.